What's up everybody, welcome back to Double T Gaming. Hope everyone is having a great day today. And on this day, we're going to be hopefully answering the question, which Classic Plus server is right for you? Turtle WoW or Ascension's Bronzebeard? I'll do my best to give you a general understanding of each of the main aspects of the server, ranging from the overall combat feel, to dungeons and raids, to class design. But first, if you have not already, please sub to the channel for everything Classic Plus, whether it be Turtle, Bronzebeard, or Epoch, or anything Blizzard lawsuit related, or anything they might have cooking themselves. And join the Discord down in the description if you're feeling frisky. But let's go ahead and jump into the topic of the day, Turtle WoW versus Bronzebeard. Let's go ahead and start with something simple, talking about class and race combinations, which is the first thing that you'll notice. On Turtle WoW, you have two new races available. The High Elves for the Alliance, being a Blood Elf type model, and Goblins for the Horde. And each of these races have their own custom starting zone. And there are also tons of new race and class combinations you can do, like an Orc Mage, a Gnome Hunter, an Undead Hunter, and things like that. And on Turtle, Shamans and Paladins are still unique to the Horde and the Alliance. So Horde cannot be Paladins and Alliance cannot be Shamans. On Bronzebeard, you have the Burning Crusade races available, with Blood Elves for the Horde and Draenei for the Alliance. They do not have their own traditional starting zone though, with the Blood Elf starting in the Undead zone and Draenei starting in the Night Elf zone, along with new racing class combos as well, like a Human Hunter or Undead Hunter and things like that. It's important to note that on Bronzebeard, with these Burning Crusade races, Horde can be Paladins with Undead and Blood Elves, and Alliance can be Shamans with Draenei and Dwarves. Moving on to the actual class design, Turtle WoW runs off a vanilla type framework for their classes with the traditional vanilla talent tree. However, each spec for each class has been reworked greatly in order to provide some better balancing and give each spec a better identity. Think a balanced druid that actually isn't a meme spec. Survival hunters are actually a full-blown melee spec with new melee abilities to boot. Sub-rogue has been transformed into a full raid support spec. Shamans can fully tank with enhancement, and each class has a number of new custom abilities to give it more flavor and a better feeling overall. Like Paladins have actual melee buttons to hit at an early level, for example the new Holy Strike ability being available early on. Turtle WoW takes the vanilla class design and improves it, giving every class and spec meaning. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, works off the Wrath of the Lich King framework, using the Wrath of the Lich King talent trees, as well as the Wrath version of the class in general. So each class will get most of the skills they get while leveling in Wrath, but smushed down to a more 60th version, with some added custom abilities. Now real quick, with the talent trees, it's not just a one-to-one copy of Wrath of the Lich King. There are some exceptions, so like Survival Hunters has some talents that are focused more towards melee. Enhancement Shamans have talents that are focused more towards tanking. So it's not a one-to-one copy, but it is very, very identical, kind of similar to how Epoch did it with Burning Crusade talent trees, with some changes in different areas. So with these Wrath trees, if you want to get the final talent of your spec, you need to spend all talent points in it. So Divine Storm is the final ability of the Ret tree for a Paladin. But in order to get Divine Storm, every talent point you get while leveling to 60 needs to be put into the Ret tree. Now to combat this, if you want to dip into another tree to grab a talent, say you're playing a prop Paladin but still want Seal of Command, there is a concept called crossover talents in the Mystic Enchantment system. So let's touch on Mystic Enchantments real quick. These essentially work like an improved version of runes from Season of Discovery, or an even better version of glyphs from Wrath of the Lich King. These come in varying rarity from blue up to legendary and artifact. By the time you're 60, you can equip 6 blue enchantments, 3 purple, 1 legendary, and 1 artifact or utility. The blue ones can be primarily bought from your trainer for a Rune of Ascension currency, which is Ascension's custom currency that you get from basically doing anything, while the other rarities are found in the open world through mob drops or secret locations. Of course, each with varying effects on gameplay, ranging from giving you new passive abilities or new actual abilities to use in game. So hunters can still be melee through the use of enchantments, shamans can tank, priest has a dedicated smite type spec with this build. So back to the crossover talents from before. If you wanted to dip into another tree for a talent that you normally would have used talent points for, you can equip that as a blue Mystic Enchantment and be given that talent. So basically, while Turtle takes the vanilla style of class design and enhances it fully, Bronzebeard takes the proven work of the Wrath class design and enhances it with the use of Mystic Enchantments. And just one quick note about the classes, on both servers you do have some form of dual spec available. Now let's talk about the next thing you'll probably experience, and that is the overall combat pacing of each server. Turtle WoW feels much closer to vanilla in terms of raw combat. Yes, each class does have some added buttons to fill out your rotation a bit more, but overall the gameplay itself still feels identical to how it did in vanilla, more slow and methodical in my opinion. While on the other hand, Bronzebeard does not feel like Vanilla's gameplay at all to me. If anything, I would equate it more to a Cataclysm or Mop style gameplay in terms of speed and your ability to just kind of go fast. And this isn't to say that mobs still aren't dangerous on Bronzebeard. The mobs have been buffed greatly with some special formulas they've included on their website that basically give them new abilities, more health, better overall attributes in terms of dodge, block, or spell damage, overall to combat the overall player power that you have on Bronzebeard. For Turtle WoW, mobs still feel roughly the same as they did in Vanilla, albeit with more health to combat some of the added damage you have with new abilities. In the custom zones though, people say that mobs are a bit tougher than normal areas and have a bit more tricks up their sleeves, while the rare mobs in the zones are more treated like mini bosses. Bottom line, Turtle feels like you're playing Vanilla with the combat, Bronzebeard feels like you're playing a sped up version of Vanilla, maybe closer to Cataclysm in the old world. Now let's talk custom content and zones. Turtle WoW has been around for over 7 years now, and all content on Turtle at this point has been flushed out and played already through the Northern realm, albeit they are still working on more content as recently as a new patch they have teased called Nightmares of Ursol. But with that being said, Turtle has a number of custom zones throughout the leveling process, from custom starting zones for High Elves and Goblins to zones like Gilneas or Balor that are used in the leveling process. There are also several new custom dungeons available like Crescent Grove and Ashenvale, or Hateforge Quarry and Burning Steps, and several new raids like the Emerald Sanctum and Upper and Lower Karazhan. And like I said, including new content still being developed that will fit seamlessly into the vanilla world. On top of this, there are thousands of new quests added through new questing hubs placed throughout Azeroth, as well as new custom gear that fits seamlessly into the leveling experience, giving you a more linear route to level 60. On the other hand, Bronzebeard is still relatively new, having just officially launched a few weeks ago. In terms of custom content, it does have revamped starting zones, with each race having a new section in the immediate beginning zones, as well as their middle towns like Goldshire and Razor Hill being totally revamped. I do have to say that these updates for the starting zones are very high quality, with each starting zone now having an elite quest to cap it off. And like Turtle, there are thousands of new quests and plenty of new questing hubs to give you a more linear route to level 60, including new custom Worldforged items placed throughout the map, letting you explore areas that you might not have before, including several custom world bosses that have already been released or will be released soon. Turtle definitely has the edge right now in terms of custom content, but that's because it's been around for so long. I think it's in Bronzebeard's plans to develop more content like they did with the starting zones, but at least for right now, that's the major thing we have to work with, outside of the new custom quests, which are very high quality. In terms of actual leveling speed, Turtle WoW is your traditional 1x experience rate, but of course with the added quests, it gives you an easier and quicker path to level 60, and on top of this, with the new survival profession, there are player tents that you can stand under to quickly gather rested experience after a short period of time, so you can essentially be rested your entire journey to 60. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, is much closer to Wrath experience rates, so about 1.5 times your journey from 1 to 60. Of course, again, the added bonus of the new quests make this faster overall, but another thing that also makes this fast is the ability to buy experience items in the cash shop, so let's go ahead and dive into the big one, the cash shop. Now the cash shop on Turtle WoW offers things such as race changes and cosmetic transmog items, as well as large 36 slot bags and portable mailboxes with custom looking mounts. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, is a bit different. Now real quick, it's important to note that everything on the Ascension shop can be bought and sold on the auction house. So you can buy an item in the shop with real money and then turn around and sell that item for gold, or be the recipient and just use only gold while on the server. You do not have to spend real money at all to be successful, but probably the biggest debate about Bronzebeard is if the cash shop is pay to win. I am not here to tell you if it is or not, or even help you define what pay to win means to some. I just want to tell you what is available. You cannot buy any piece of raid or high-end gear in the shop for real money at all. Let me just get that out of the way. But honestly, any item outside of that you can think of is probably available. You can buy a whistle that gives you every flight path in the game immediately. You can buy riding tomes that instantly give you 60% or 100% riding instead of buying it normally with gold. You can buy an item that lets you have more than 2 primary professions. You can buy another item that lets you max out a profession instantly. Once you hit level 60 in a character on Bronzebeard for the first time, you can buy a full set of heirloom items to help you level faster. You can also buy, and at the time of me recording this is not yet available in the shop, but you can buy an experience aura that gives you and your party members an experience boost, as well as an experience potion that gives you more experience on top of that. You can have a floating book companion that acts as your class trainer or a profession trainer. You can buy dual spec from the shop. In fact, you can buy multiple specs, not just 2. And there's also plenty of transmog and vanity items available as well, but there is the option to turn all of these off in game and just see vanilla type models instead. Again, I am not here to tell you if this is pay to win or not, but this is important to note if you do plan on playing on Bronzebeard that this stuff exists. And like I said, you don't have to buy any of this at all. In fact, I think some people don't even notice the difference between someone who has bought something in the shop or someone who hasn't. Of these two servers, Bronzebeard definitely takes the cake in terms of content on the shop. Now let's real quick talk about factions. Both of these servers are cross-faction. You can group and do dungeons and raids with either one. There are no restrictions on it outside of PvP combat. Speaking of PvP, Turtle WoW and specifically Ambershire are your more traditional versions of PvP. There is a war mode available that was recently changed on Turtle WoW from being done in character creation to now being enabled from your PvP Battlemaster that still gives you an experience bonus, while the server itself is PvE, and it runs off of your traditional vanilla PvP system with rank 14 with your traditional battlegrounds as well as the addition of arenas. In terms of balance, feedback I have gathered is that it's not very balanced at all, and that overall Turtle's focus is more on PvE. And to be fair, with all of the custom additions to help classes in PvE, balancing in PvP would be difficult to pull off at all. To be honest with you, I have not heard the best things when it comes to PvP on Turtle WoW. Bronzebeard is an opt-in type PvP server. By default, you are in PvE mode. But in any major city starting level 15, you can enable war mode for a 10% experience bonus, or high risk mode for a 15% experience bonus. The main thing you need to know about this is that war mode behaves like your typical PvP mode, open world, alliance versus horde. High risk is exactly how it sounds, in that you're playing with a greater risk. If you die, you drop a chest containing random loot from your bags and a certain amount of gold depending on the item level of your equipped gear. If you cannot afford that gold price on your equipped gear, you then lose pieces of gear in its place. But in high risk, you can't be a level 40 ganking level 20 and looting their chest. Your primary target has to be within 5 levels of you in order for a chest to drop. So a level 30 will not get a chest for killing a level 24. But they will get one for killing a level 25. Also, quick note, some zones are considered honorable combat zones, so like Desolace and Ashenvale, where it is strictly 1v1 PvP combat. You cannot help someone who is engaged in PvP because they are treated like they are in a duel. This helps with overall just squad ganking, so you're not getting maybe 4v1s in one of those more contested areas. In high risk, you also have the ability to loot blue quality items called Bloodforge gear, which are enhanced versions of classic items. In terms of instance PvP, you have your traditional vanilla battlegrounds as well as Temple of Komogu and Twin Peaks with custom versions of each, like a snowy Arathi Basin or a snowy Warsong Gulch, as well as arenas coming soon as well. The PvP system itself runs off of one similar to Cataclysm, with gear being bought with honor and eventually arena points. There is no rank 14 grind. Now let's do a quick look at player base. Turtle WoW has this information available to you at any time, with peak hours being closer to 8 to 9k and closer to 5k during the lowest points. Ascension and Bronzebeard, on the other hand, do not have this available to the average player. The normal dash who command has been disabled entirely on Bronzebeard, meaning you can't shift click someone's name to see their level and location, let alone do a dash shoe of an area. This was done to discourage player hunting in the high risk mode mentioned earlier. There is also no .server info command as well to tell you numbers there. So again, no way of knowing player count. But what we do know is that this server is still probably on the honeymoon population phase from launch, so the numbers now are probably the highest they ever will be. As well as a second server called Malfurion had to be opened on launch day just to carry the overflow. And even to this day, there are still moments of having a logging queue on the server that can hold maybe roughly 10,000 people online at one time. So there's probably close to 10 to 11k players on during peak hours. Now on the topic of players numbers, let's talk phasing and layers. Turtle WoW does not use any type of layering or phasing system at all. It is true to vanilla with everyone seeing everyone. Bronzebeard though has some majorly weird phasing going on when going from one sub-zone to another. There are times where you'll be running to another area to kill mobs for quests, see a whole group of mobs, then you cross a phasing border, and then those mobs you saw before will phase out and disappear, and you'll see the corpses of mobs already killed in that new mini hub. To be honest with you, it is incredibly annoying to deal with this while leveling. In terms of your normal layers though, everything does take place on the same layer outside of major cities, but in different phases. So Billy and Jimmy can be on the same layer, but say Billy is on Saldine's farm in Westfall while Jimmy is on another farm in Westfall. If they meet in the middle, they will see each other. But if they go back to their respective farms, they'll be in a different phase from each other for that moment. Basically, every sub-zone of a zone, like Farm 1 or Farm 2, is their own specific phase. It's confusing, but overall, phasing and layering are different in terms of WoW. There are no layers, at least for now, until they introduce a PvE only layer, but there are phases. Now let's look at mounting next. So on Turtle WoW, you can technically use a mount at level 1 without any training because mount speed scales with your level. So at level 1, if you do have a mount, it will be just plus 0.5% movement speed. At level 20, you're up to a plus 10% movement speed. Up until you hit level 40, your mount will go a maximum of plus 20% movement speed. But then you have the option to purchase that normal training level 40, which will then bump you up to 60% movement speed up until you buy the next level of training at level 60. And you're given your first in-game mount through request at level 18 being a turtle. Any mount before that can basically be bought at the donation shop. Now on Bronzebeard, they do mounting a bit differently. At level 5, in your starting area Second City, so Goldshire or Razor Hill, there is a riding trainer available that will offer novice riding training. This is a 40% movement speed increase and a free mount to go along with it. Now the minimum requirement for 60% riding training used to be level 10, but I believe they changed this recently. So if you have the gold available as soon as you buy novice training, you can go ahead and buy 60% riding training as well. And then at level 30, you can purchase the 100% riding training. And as I mentioned earlier, these can be purchased through a tome in the cash shop or for in-game gold. So both servers do technically have mounting early on, but Bronzebeard definitely gives you way more mobility than Turtle does at the beginning stages of leveling. Now let's touch on professions real quick. Turtle WoW has your normal vanilla professions, as well as the addition of jewel crafting and the new secondary profession, survival, with the highlight of this being the ability to put up a traveler's tent for you and all players near you, which, as mentioned earlier, gives a rested experience bonus at a much higher rate than an inn. And all professions have their own custom recipes added in. Bronzebeard has overhauled professions a bit. Initially, you'll notice that each skill up while leveling a profession gives you 2 skill points rather than 1, and profession gear itself can be greatly upgraded through upgrade kits. And while leveling, this gear is usually better than anything you would find in the open world or even in dungeons. And each piece of crafted gear now has a random affix attached to it. So Arcanite Reaper can have an of the whatever type affix to it with new affixes available. And each time you craft an item or gather something, like in future versions of WoW, it does give experience based on the difficulty of the item. Looking at challenges on these servers, they both have their fair share of unique ones, but Bronzebeard I think takes the cake with this. Turtle WoW does have your traditional hardcore mode, with your traditional if you die, you lose your character type thing. There's also modes where you can't equip anything better than common quality items, or a mode where you can only equip crafted gear. And these are all available on the character creation screen, most of them rewarding some type of transmog or title. Bronzebeard has an entire UI in-game dedicated to different types of challenges. But if I'm not mistaken, with any of these challenges like hardcore, you don't actually lose your character, you simply fail the challenge and you don't get the rewards at the end of it, which usually includes some type of transmog or Rune of Ascension currency or something else as well. You have a challenge that will tell you to kill certain bosses before a certain leveling threshold. You can turn all mobs elite in front of you. You can only level up through gathering. They honestly have a crazy amount available to choose from. Let's look at dungeons and raids next. As mentioned earlier, Turtle WoW does have a ton of custom dungeons available. I won't go into all of them, but just give you the basic info about dungeons and raiding. There is no random dungeon finder on the server, but there is a looking for group tool that can just help you put the group together, but does not teleport you to the dungeon. And there's also no summoning stone available at the dungeon, so all party members must walk to the entrance like in vanilla. There is also just the one difficulty for dungeons and raids as well. Now raids do have some player scaling available. 20-man raids scale from 12 to 20 players. So you can have any number of players from 12 to 20, and the mobs will scale appropriately. 40-man raids and Onyxia, Molten Core, VWL, and AQ40 scale from 20 to 40 players, while the other 40-man raids like Nax, Emerald Sanctum scale from 30 to 40 players. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, is a bit different. So first off, on Bronzebeard, there is a random dungeon finder tool that will automatically put you into a group as well as teleport you into the dungeon. While leveling, you cannot queue for a specific dungeon like you typically could with this tool in future versions of WoW. It is entirely just random dungeons. And these dungeons are also scaled in order to help with queue times. So at level 15, you can get put into a Scarlet Monastery, or at level 40, you can get put into Wailing Caverns. And all loot dropped in these dungeons also scale with your level, including quest rewards. So for an example of this, the quest for Razorfen Downs to get Vanquisher Sword in Stormwind, you can accept that before level 20. And if you randomly queue into RFD and complete that quest, you'll get a level 15 or whatever version of that sword, rather than the normal 40-ish level. At level 60, you do have the option to queue for specific dungeons like in normal versions of WoW. Also, it's important to note that if you do not want a scaled dungeon experience, you can still physically walk to the dungeon and get your own group together, and it will be your typical dungeon run, just not scaled at all. There are 4 dungeon and raid difficulties in total. There's normal, heroic, mythic plus, as well as the new ascended difficulty. So now touching on raids, those are scaled anywhere from 10 to 25 players. So you can do a 10-man Molten Core or a 10-man Onyxia, and health and damage of the mobs will be scaled appropriately. In terms of custom dungeons and raids, right now the only non-vanilla thing in Bronzebeard I believe is Blackrock Caverns, which was added recently, which is a 1-to-1 copy of its version from Cataclysm. Both Turtle WoW and Bronzebeard do also have their custom world bosses. Right now on Bronzebeard there is Cetus and Silithus. And with world bosses on Bronzebeard, they just announced it will be an instant type encounter for PvE, so basically just you and your group enter an instance where the world boss is, and then for PvP, just the tagging group will get credit, but it will also drop bonus rewards like the Bloodforge gear mentioned earlier. Now real quick, let me touch on gearing at level 60 on these servers. On Turtle WoW, it looks like it's your typical vanilla gearing experience. You run your dungeons, do your professions, get your pre-raid bis, then jump into raids after that. On Bronzebeard, gearing goes a bit quicker thanks to the call board and the caches you receive from it. So early on, even prior to level 60, you can do daily profession quests at the call board and receive a call board cache that you can't open until level 55. For example, right now level 43, I have about 12 of these waiting for me, and these contain gear on par with the current raid tier. So at the moment, this will contain heroic dungeon level loot for me, making it much quicker and easier to get up when you do hit 60. On top of being able to just jump into heroic dungeons through the dungeon finder. Now let's talk world and item scaling. Turtle WoW, outside of raid scaling, has no type of scaling whatsoever. It is your typical vanilla experience. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, is way different. There is mob scaling, and there is item scaling on the server. The open world mob scaling can be turned off at character creation or any time in the game if you talk to a certain NPC. What the scaling does is that it essentially makes it so that no mob will ever turn gray to you. They will only be green, and the quests as well will never go gray, just green. So you can be level 30 leveling in Dunmore or even a level 50 in Westfall. With this, it's important to note that mobs only scale up to your level. They do not scale down to your level. So you cannot be a level 20 walking into Searing Gorge, but again, you can be a level 55 walking into Darkshore, and you'll be seeing level 51 mobs. Then there is the item scaling as well. So like mentioned earlier, item drops will scale with your level. So say you're running Deadmines to level 20 and Smite's Hammer drops. You'll get a level 20 version of Smite's Hammer. Then you get Deadmines again in the random dungeon finder at level 40, Smite's Hammer drops again, you'll get a level 40 version of that hammer. You cannot turn off this type of scaling on Bronzebeard. Finally, let's look at the clients these two run on as well as add-ons available, which is the more techie side of things. Turtle WoW is your old school 1.12 client, the same type of client that Nostalrius ran on back in the day, and really similar to how vanilla WoW looked and felt back then. There are plenty of add-ons and mods available for the 1.12 client available on the Turtle launcher, as well as through different websites that try to modernize 1.12 as much as possible. And the only graphics available for Turtle WoW are your classic type models. Bronzebeard runs off of Ascension's version of the Wrath 3.3.5 client, and also offers HD modern textures, so the WoD character models, and you can swap back and forth on these at any time. While Turtle WoW feels like you're playing an old school game with a client, Bronzebeard feels a lot more modern with its game fluidity and also has tons of add-ons available on the Ascension launcher as well, as does Turtle. So at the end of the day, let's sum up these two as best we can. Turtle WoW is probably closer to a true vanilla experience, in tune with vanilla's combat. They take the vanilla framework and do their best to balance it for PvE scenarios by giving each class and spec their own identity, while offering tons of custom content that fits seamlessly into the vanilla world. Most people say that this is the most pure Classic Plus experience you can find. Bronzebeard, on the other hand, feels more like a modernized version of Classic, with some folks calling it a retail minus rather than a Classic Plus. Totally your opinion though on what Classic Plus means to you. It has a faster paced combat that I equate more to a Cataclysm style gameplay rather than vanilla, and offers tons of different transmog options and cash shop items that can help you skip some longer grindy parts of vanilla if you don't have as much time to play anymore. In my opinion, if you want the most pure Classic Plus experience you can find that really tries to capture that vanilla feeling, then you play Turtle WoW. If you want a more updated, fast-paced version of Classic that feels like you're playing something closer to maybe how more modern WoW feels, and also you just don't have as much time to play the game anymore, then play Bronzebeard. At the end of the day, both of these servers are totally free to play. You do not need to spend any money to be successful on either one of these servers, and you can enjoy them for what they are. Now, of course, Turtle has the Blizzard lawsuit looming, so a lot of folks may be a little wary of trying it, but I don't think it would hurt you at all to just kind of dip your toe into it a little bit just to see what the greener side of WoW feels like. But anyway, I hope this comparison type video was helpful to you guys. I know these servers are so different that it's hard to rate them side by side with each other, but I thought it would be at least beneficial to some to get the overall gist of what both of these servers have to offer. But anyway, I know this was a long one. I thank you guys for sticking with me, or if you just skipped around, I'll be sure to have timestamps in there. But as always, thank you guys for watching. This is Double T Gaming. Don't forget to hit that like button and sub the channel for everything Classic Plus, and I will see you guys in the next video.